Sunday, April 17th, 2016. I saw the moon tilt last night, guys, myself. I want to share with you what that means. Plus, I've put together some thoughts on chemtrails and also have our first successful balloon launch. I'm going to show you. It's successful in the sense that we got the balloon up, but I'll show you what happened. And then finally, lots of other stuff to catch up on. So let's get started here. The first thing I want to talk about is Mr. MBB333 had shown this illustration about how he had figured that the Earth had tilted. And we also had all those reports coming out last week from the mainstream media talking about how global warming has changed the tilt of the Earth, etc., which I think is BS. I think it's the Nemesis system. But you can see this. I'm just going to hold this in here for reference right now. But this is what I saw last night from east to west, and I want to see what you guys see too. So this is what the moon should look like. It's actually about 3/4 full, 80. You know, but you can see the light line on one side or the other. So the line in the middle just represents on the one side. This is where the sun's hitting it, and then on the other side, this is where it's dark. So this is light, this is dark. But just to show you, last night, this is what I saw as the moon progressed over. So I looked out and I saw it was this way, and I was cool with it, and I went in the house, and then came out later in the night, and it flipped. It flipped from this to this. This is what we mean by the moon flip. And then by the end of the evening, like 2 in the morning when I was up, I could actually see that the angle of the light line had changed that much. So we've got a moon that will allow us to do that tonight. I'd like everybody to, anybody who has time tonight to go out, let me know what your thoughts are on email, and if you've captured anything interesting like this. But yes, the moon is flipping. And this would indicate that our tilt is basically pushed us forward like it shows here. So now that instead of the ecliptic being here, the ecliptic is here. Now for me, it's about the same latitude and longitude, so I would expect weather to remain relatively the same. But these parts of the United States and this area should also have different weather than it used to have. Well, sure enough, the North Pole has different weather. And now that the South Pole is turning away from the sun more, apparently what it looks like, then it would be, of course, more ice there. And that's exactly what we're seeing. More ice in the south, less ice in the north, and very difficult to get the weather pattern so that you can prove this. But if anybody can do it, please do it, because the weather should follow the ecliptic. In other words, what I'm saying is wherever you are relative to the sun, as the tilt of the Earth changes, your weather will change too. And you'll notice also that most of the changes will come in the most populated areas of the world, thereby giving us the perception of global warming, when in fact the Earth is fine. It's just tilted. Tilted on its side. Next thing I want to talk about is chemtrails, okay? So what I did was I went through and I said, okay, it's got, primarily we see aluminum, primarily we see barium, and primarily we see lithium in these chemtrail chemicals. So the first thing I want to talk about is aluminum. Well, as it turns out, aluminum is basically the tool that we use to reduce primary and secondary radiation in spacecraft. And aluminum, a very small sliver of aluminum, turns out that is a very good diffractor and reflector of radiation, space radiation. It also is a great way to block what's up there too, because the aluminum particles would reflect back the sun. So this is part of what I think they're doing. I think what they're doing is they're trying to create the illusion through chemtrailing in different areas of the world that the weather's the same. So they're artificially holding down the temperature by reducing the amount of radiation that hits the Earth, where the sun is, specifically where the ecliptic would change. So for example, Portland, Oregon sees a lot of chemtrailing. Well, Portland would be one of those areas. If you go back to my little Earth model here, Portland is here. So it went from being here, up in here somewhere, to being down here if there's a tilt. And yes, it would get tremendously hotter in Portland, unusually so, if the ecliptic changed. You understand? So Portland gets a lot. So you'll notice that across the northern hemisphere of the United States, we're getting a lot of chemtrailing. And we're also getting a lot of chemtrailing in the southern parts of the United States. So it would be a climate more like Brazil now, or somewhere closer to, obviously, the ecliptic, or the equator, rather. So interesting thinking there. And then the second thing is barium sulfate. Turns out that barium sulfate blocks X-rays. Who would have known, right? It's a shielding substance. They actually put it in the plaster for X-ray um, offices. Like when you go to the dentist, they actually have that ingrained in the plaster to help to reduce the amount of X-ray radiation or gamma radiation that would leave that X-ray treatment area. So barium turns out to block X-rays. And then finally, lithium. Why lithium, right? At first I thought, are we all going to go crazy or whatever? But it turns out that neurocognitive impairment due to extreme radiation, in the case of chemotherapy patients, one of the ways that they treat them for that cranial irradiation problem is with lithium. They want to keep us going to work as long as possible. So they're spraying the air with this lithium because they know that we're being overexposed to radio waves and X-rays, and they're blocking it as best they can to try to simulate regular weather patterns, and then they pump lithium in it to keep us all going to work. I just think that's not even funny anymore. I think it's horrible. All right. Last thing I want to say on the slides before I jump into pictures is today I want to talk seriously about building a community on this channel. It's time to get serious. Things are going down, and it's time for group leaders to be called. So here's what I'd like you to do. If you want to be a group leader for WSO, and the goal of these groups would be to be leaders in a state or a country where you would actually have people in that local area contact you personally to set up meetings, groups, and start to get to know each other. The believers start to get to know each other a little bit. And the way you do this is in your titles to your email to me, write in all caps your name, and then group leader / and then your location is, say, Texas or whatever it is. That will make it easy for me to pick out the emails that are the ones for group leaders, and I'll start to build a spreadsheet. We'll distribute it to everybody. Remember, if you're going to decide to be a group leader, you will be public. Your name will be published. Your location will get published. So I am asking you to do something very brave to be a group leader. But here's what's going to happen. Once those meetings start happening, you start to build these communities together, what's going to happen is we're going to start to help each other. Now, I'll give you an example. I have a couple in Portland that wanted to commune with believers. Okay, they wanted to get out of Portland, they wanted to leave Portland, and they wanted to move in with somebody who's already starting to build a refugee idea or a community idea, and they would be working, they would contribute, and they were looking for somebody that would take them on in their land so that they could come and be part of a community. And there are probably thousands of people like this on the coast. So one of the things I have, hopefully, as we start to connect the dots with different people with this community building group, is that people like this then could find other people to work with and start to build communities. So this is the next step for WSO, you guys. This is where I'm going to take it as a group, and I look forward to seeing your guys' proposals for that. So send your note to me, and we'll get this thing started. Let's go on now to the pictures. By now, you've probably heard about our Navy being buzzed by 2 Russian jets in, I think it was it was in the Black Sea, I believe. But anyway, 2 jets buzzed our aircraft, or our 2 aircraft buzzed our ship, the United States ship, and look at the picture. And they didn't even notice that they caught a picture of Nibiru, or of one of the planets of the Nibiru, what I call the Nibiru system. Right out there, man. This one was interesting. It's a new webcam. I'll put a link down below. But this cam is much more serious than the all sky cams, and because it is actually used in astronomy. So basically, what I did was I went back to the day that I thought that there would be a lot of activity, which in this case would have been, I think, the 14th. And sure enough, what do I see? As I move this through, tell me if you don't see a red dot moving behind the sun. See it? Moves all the way around. Now watch, here it is right here, and I'll start it again, and then that way you can see it. It's right here. See it? Now watch it move around the sun. It's not a lens flare, you guys. That's our bad boy coming in, is what it is. Okay? So take a look at this site, and keep an eye on it. If you see something on it, send it to me, and we'll take a look. Okay? All right, so this is the satellite footage, or not, God, I keep calling it satellite. It is the satellite for the 99%, is what I call it. Anyway, it's a low Earth, high altitude balloon. This case was a 350-gram balloon with a payload of about 400 grams, which is a camera. And the good news is that the launch was super successful. I was able to recover the camera. I was able to recover the unit. We achieved something like 73,000 feet. But you know what? I made a big mistake, and I'm admitting it to you guys. I didn't put a big enough memory chip in it to capture the whole flight, so I only got the first half hour of the flight. So that should make you all very happy with me. But I do have a flight planned later for today, or not today, but I have a flight planned for later in the week. And I'm getting 2 balloons, so I can do 2 flights next week. So if you guys could share with me what day you think would be the best day to send it up and what time of day you think would be the best time to send it up, let me know right away, and we'll get more footage. We did see some anomalies in the that's Wisconsin, in case you're wondering. And so that's the balloon footage. We made it to probably about 50,000, 40,000 feet before the camera cut off. And then you can see the chemtrailer just like he came right over my head when we were flying this flight. It was pretty funny. Hopefully you saw the balloon. I hate them. Anyway, so there you go. They're spraying the lithium to keep you guys going to work. You love it? Like it? Like it? God dang them. Man, Jesus. Oh, they're just so mean. They're just so, evil. Anyway, next thing, let's go on to some pictures. And we've got a lot of them today, so just hang on. The first thing I want to show you is a nice capture. Here's this little dot that everybody's been capturing lately, and I can't tell if it's the sun or a different object. And then yesterday, Chris Potter put up a video that proved that they filmed this dot separate from the sun using stellarium. So we'll see. But look at this reverse out image of this. This is very interesting to me because it's just basically setting up contrast and things like that. But look, you've got this dot, and then you've got this kind of increasing orb of redness going on behind the sun, and that jives with that astrological thing I just showed you from the astronomy site. Not astrological, but astronomy site. So again, we're seeing this thing moving around the back of the sun, and this might be a manifestation of it in the background. Here's just a good picture of something. This could be a flare, okay? But again, it's a compelling photograph. This one is compelling only because we can see the object here just faintly, but you got to have an eye for it, man. Once you start looking at this stuff, you'll start picking stuff up. And on the other hand, what you'll start doing is you'll see stuff where there is nothing, right? This was an interesting photograph in that that's not, it could be a lens flare, but again, we're getting that dotted orb, and it makes me wonder if maybe there's something in front of the sun that's a dotted, that looks like that. This is Egypt, where we're seeing big, huge, shadows in the sky, for lack of a better word, like they're blocking that part of the sky. And if that is the case, things are getting pretty heated. Here's just an interesting, weird picture that I got. Here's this one with this little thing up here. This one is not a lens flare in this case. This one here doesn't have the characteristics of a lens flare, and I think that's jives with the Brazilian photos that Marshall Masters analyzed the other day. Here's an interesting photograph where you've got the 2 little green things happening and lots of refraction and refraction, but again, just interesting stuff. Now let's get into a few Roy things. Today I want to speak to the Roy stuff. Roy does a great job to make these self-explanatory, but today I want to explain a little bit. This is starting to get very scary. And the reason I say that is scary, it's looming on the horizon and it's getting closer. We were not able to make out the blue versus the red in these earlier Savannah Skycams, pictures. So Roy actually yesterday, was able to capture both the blue and the red, which jives with that little hourglass that we keep seeing all the time, refracting. Blue and red, there it is. Blue Kachina, red Kachina, in my opinion. It's just, look at that. And remember how we talked about the big orb, little orb? Could this possibly be an orbiting body around a larger body? I think it is. Now here's where we go to an old photograph of Nibiru, and basically he's showing that the shape of this is the same as these early photographs of Nibiru, and the odds of that are pretty freaking low. Roy. Again, Roy, captured it in France. Again, here's the little dot, the big dot, close up. Unbelievable. And again, from France, he was able to discern the shape of what we think the system might look like. All right, to shift gears, we have friends in China, okay? Friends of friends in China, let's say it. And on April 19th, the Chinese will no longer deal in the dollar, and on that day, $2 trillion plus will be returned to U.S. banks almost instantly. Now, I'm not trying to cause a panic or a scare or anything like that, but what I am saying is be aware of this, okay? When the Chinese have every right to go to the yuan, number one, okay? And they've been intending to do this for a long time, and they've gotten the yuan as one of the four global currencies, which is the sterling, pound sterling, dollar, yuan, and I can't remember what the last one is. But so basically, they're getting ready to execute this next level of becoming their own banking society, and it's going to be, it could be ugly. So be ready. It's not in the major news anywhere. Nobody's covering it except for the truthers like me. So I wanted to make sure I put that alert out to everybody. Okay? Just be heads up. Have cash. Don't rely on ATMs. There might be a bank holiday, etc. This is just some Soho photography showing different things. These could be planets. This is the flight path that my balloon took the other day. It went up to 70,000 feet and I didn't have film in it. Oh, I feel stupid. Oh. Now, the reason I pulled this one out, first of all, spooky little graveyard. We're seeing a double dot now. Now, I understand a single dot lens flare. I get that. I get it completely. But to say there's nothing to learn from a lens flare is pure lunacy. This is a reflection. And what we've got is a reflection of two things, not one. Okay? If it was one thing, I got one lens flare, but I got two things up there. Okay? That's why we're seeing the double dot lens flare. This is a red, this is from Pontiac, Texas, stellar skies. And this is in the west. At this time of night, Mars would have been over here in the east. Hope maybe that's even Mars right there. And just had this huge red burst of light coming out from stellar skies, Texas. Here we have the again the halo again, and I can't remember where this is from, but it was a guy that said he never saw the halo till today. It's there all the time, you guys, and I'm going to show a picture of it every time. Somebody sends me a picture of the halo every day, and the reason I'm saying this is part of that shielding I think they're doing. They're trying to keep things as normal as possible so that people don't panic. Okay. This could be the moon, okay, because it's got the right amount of light on it, but there are other objects up in here that are just amazing from the ISS. And this is our typical Moon Glow Observatory look in Missouri. Look at this one. So, photo gallery, National Geographic, Queen Maud Land. These guys are doing an expedition. Notice that their shadows are like in this angle here, okay? What's that? Oh, it's a lens flare. Okay. Here's just some interesting cloud structures that people want to share with me. And then you go up here and then you see an object. That's not a lens flare, my friends. Just not. What I liked about this reverse out, again, is it shows that multiple red, like it goes from this to this, until it's a huge red orb in the back. And it also shows this green thing in this, and then the orb in the middle. I got this really cool photograph. Now, this is a known sunspot, okay? But what's interesting about this known sunspot, go look at Mr. MBB333 and go check out what he says about the sunspot. And then go back, you know, again, we can capture a sunspot on the sun, you guys, with a camera like this person shows. And that's a sunspot that we know about. Excuse me, but that sunspot is not in the right spot. If you look at it from the spacecraft, it's in the upper right quadrant of the sun, not in the lower right quadrant of the sun, which indicates that we've been tipping again. This one was interesting to me. It was a blow up from this photo where you can actually see the green orb. We had a huge flare yesterday, and somebody sent me a quick, update on it. And of course, we know that we're having lots of earthquake activity in Ecuador and in Indonesia or wherever it is. Those 7 point whatever earthquakes are starting to happen. And then if you listen to Terrell Blackstar, we're on the outside orbital position, so we should be expecting this. The question is, how close is it, and how is going to determine how bad the earthquakes are going to be. This one was just cool because we got this like red line going through it, which is kind of a weird effect that I would say is from ultraviolet radiation. Hey, I need some help out there, guys. Anybody that looks at the GOES 15 solar X-ray imager photos, if you've ever looked at these before, is it normal for me to have, so here's the sun, okay, in the background, and we can see the X-rays coming off the sun. But is it normal for me to have like a beam of X-ray light across this thing? Is that how they measured or look at it? I don't know, because it seemed out of place to me, but somebody could probably educate me on this, okay? Please do. And again, just kind of getting back to the beginning of the photos again. So everybody, real busy video today. But before I leave you and let you go, I want you to put your glasses down for a second, you guys. It's easy to stay up all fucking night on this thing. Excuse my language. It's easy to stay up all night looking at images. It's easy just to do this 24/7. Don't ignore your family. Don't ignore the people that you love. Spend a little bit of time away from this subject from time to time, okay? And get close.